Okay, it says we're on. So let me get on Facebook here and monitor the chat here. Make sure my phone is off because you know how that happens.
Yes, sir.
All right, here we go. We are live.
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to a special live with Leo, but also newly renamed to be Wisdom Club Live. And I want to just continue to remind everybody, if you have not been on the show before and you're new here, I just want to let you know that we are focusing, our interview series on live videos toward my private group called Wisdom Club. And so there's a link in the post here. If you'll go on there and join the group, I'd appreciate it. We're going to starting July 1st, we are going to stream specifically to that group only so that I can really, really focus and serve my private group who are really, really fans of mine and have been for years. And I want to continue to give and continue to give value. Good morning or good afternoon, Beverly. Thank you. Thank you for the hearts. Thank you for the likes. I love seeing those things flying around. So without further ado, I want to introduce an amazing entrepreneur. His name is Tony Lee, and he came highly recommended through our network. And I had some chats with him on the phone and really, really like his vibe and really like his drive and his thoughtfulness in how he does business. And so I want to get into kind of give everybody a little bit of background on him, from him, so that we can kind of know like where he kind of grew up from and how he kind of got to where he is and give us some journey along the way. Take it away, Tony.
Yeah, no, appreciate the humbling intro. It's a big honor for me to be here today. So thank you. So my name is Tony Lee. I've been in digital marketing for over a decade, and I currently work as a director of pay social at a publicly traded company. I met, in fact, and everything. Your last guest, Michelle, is actually one of my best friends, if not my best friend. And I grew up with her from Orange County. So what a small world, right? She didn't even know she was telling me that she was going on your show. I'm like, I'm going on the next day. So small world. But yeah, humbled to be in a place where I know Michelle's been on and a lot of your guests. So thanks for having me on today.
Yeah, super awesome. Michelle is so great. I so much enjoy that conversation with her. She just, got a lot to offer and so kind. And when we Asians talk about food and stuff like that, like we can't stop talking about food.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so very cool. I like all the connections that we have with all our guests in many different ways, whatever degrees that is. So very cool.
Yeah.
So you are born and raised SoCal?
No, so I guess a little bit of my story. So I was born in Korea, and then right about the second grade, I immigrated to America. And the original idea was for me to stay here in the United States until the graduation of my elementary school, and then I was going to go back to Korea. And then we ended up staying here. So I was born there. I say, what was the speech that I made? Like born in Korea. I forgot that. Phrase that I had a long time ago, but basically then I went through uni here as well. And then it took me a while to come back to California. So even though I grew up in Orange County and Laguna Hills, I went to school at Orange Coast College, and then I transferred to St. Bonaventure University in Western New York. And then since then, I packed up everything after I graduated college and moved to Austin without a job offer because I wanted to live there. In fact, I had to live out of my car for the first 30 days because I didn't have a job and I was just going to networking events and making connections. So from there, I went to Austin, and then I went to Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and then to New York City, and then to Miami, and back to LA in about 2.5 years ago. And now I'm living in downtown LA and working in Santa Monica.
Awesome. I love talking with people who have kind of been living in different states along the way and somehow ended up here in California because I had basically grew up in California. I'd never known anything else. And I always tell people like in my 20s, in my right after college, I was like, hey, I've never lived anywhere else before. Let me give it a try. And so I had a job at the time, and I took like 6 vacations that year. My boss was super pissed. was like, again? I was like, yeah, so I traveled probably, about probably close to 9, 10 states and big cities. I thought that would be cool, that I hear about a lot. And really, really enjoyed Chicago. And I was going to move to Chicago. And then my friend said, hey, you should come back in the wintertime if you're thinking about moving here.
Hmm.
And then I did, and realized that I could not survive in the snow. So
Yeah, if you want to live in a place that has the weather that's completely different from Southern California, go to school where I did, near Buffalo, New York. It is, in fact, I got a cold my first day of college because I didn't realize how cold was. So, yeah, it's very different weather, very different mindset.
yeah, yeah. So I had that experience. That was really the only experience I had. And then after that winter, I said, okay, no, it's really kind of dumb that I want to move because it's so nice here. I can do everything all year round. I can be as productive as I want to be. And then also my family is here, and I always hear about friends um, who moved from somewhere else to California, and they always say like every year, oh yeah, I got to go fly back to see my family. I got to go back to see my mom, my sister, whatever it is, and sometimes they come out here, but I got to travel, and I just didn't want to go through that thing where like, man, you don't get to see your family. And like my family, like here, like 10 minutes, like 5, 10 minutes away, like
Hmm.
anytime I need anything. And so to be like to strip myself of that for literally kind of no reason. So I kind of decided against it, and like, hey, never looking back and staying here. I'm happy to travel. I'm happy to spend some time elsewhere to get an idea, but no need to really move somewhere else.
Yeah.
Cool. So you ended up here. What brought you here eventually?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to be just like you said, closer to family. So my entire goal was always to move back to California in one way or another. But one of the things that people may or may not know about the advertising industry in California is very limited, and there's not a lot of opportunity for growth. So I knew if I wanted to be here, I needed to have the New York City resume and not just a New York City resume. That I would lead a team in New York City at a pretty big way. And then I also got that from another holding company, or got it at a holding company where I designed various things for that agency, and working a lot of retail brands. And I knew I needed to do that. And the path for me to do it was having to learn from the best of the best and then bring that to Southern California. So I took the path that is less traveled, that I would say, because nobody's willing to move from Austin to North Carolina to New York to Miami. That's 4 times, and it's 4 major moves and 4 different departments and 4 different everything. And but I always did it to move back to California eventually. In fact, I kind of moved here a little bit earlier. Than I guess like in my mind, because I was really happy with everything in Florida, but family is first, and that's kind of why I moved back.
Right. So it sounded like in the back of your mind you kind of set your sights over here and kind of already had this image of getting here one way or another.
Well, so I'm taking some macro bets on where the advertising industry is going on. One is that I believe that influencers and people that who you would consider, not Hollywood stars, but influencers within 20 years are going to be our Hollywood stars. So what then I know is that infrastructure across the entire world, Hollywood is still that base, and that industry is going to pivot. So to me, I'm betting on a macro behavior, what I'm seeing in social media, especially that's happening in Asia and in the United States. And I know that's going to happen. And I believe this is the hub. So I want it to be here. Not only that, there's streaming and there's a lot of content that's happening. In fact, we're creating content on social media right now, right? Because it's being live broadcasted on Facebook. I believe this is the next trend as well. And this is going to be the space. And right now, all the social media scope of work is pretty much in the East Coast and New York City specifically. But I think it's going to be a slow migration to the West Coast for so many myriad of reasons that I could get into. But yeah, I really think this is going to be the base. And if you talk to anybody in Silicon Valley right now, none of them really do anything with marketing or social media. That's not how they grow their brand. It's more e-com. So I know that that is an industry that's still untapped, and the base is here, and that's where the scope is going to be. So, I've always taken a bigger look at everything that I've done, not just like a 1 year, 2 year kind of situation. I'm making bets at 10 years and looking at patterns and developing ahead for it. That's one of the reasons why I became at the position that I'm at. But yeah, so that's kind of why I've always seen California versus me just wanting to live here because of the great weather. But in fact, there is really great weather, and Michelle would tell you she would never leave Southern California because of the weather and everything else. So I know a lot of people feel that way, but I truly believe this is going to be the digital and e-com and social media hub in the next 20 years. And yeah, like, yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I love that forward thinking. I come on Facebook Live every day, every other morning when I'm out hiking and stuff like that, and that's one of the things I talk about. Is like, hey, you know, stop looking in your past. If you continue to focus on what has happened. Now, mind you, we all have to learn from our past, but you've got to look ahead to what's coming, and at least put an image in front of you. You know how to guide yourself, and it sounds like you have done a lot more forward thinking, year in year out, and kind of like really analyze an industry and how things are going to progress based on, the easy example is like the e-commerce, right? Like we all saw like how e-commerce grew, and we knew for years like, hey, it's going to be this thing where you're going to shop online. So a lot of naysayers and all that stuff, but that's proven to be pretty wrong, right?
Well, I think I would challenge that notion in that I think not a lot of people knew that e-commerce was going to be as impacted as it was. If you've seen the growth curve of kind of e-com adoption, what happened in the last like right around February to March, and from March to April, the growth in those last 2 months exceeded the last 3 years of growth of e-commerce, right? So the growth was slow, like there's no doubt it. But when things had to be shut down, that's kind of when it peaked. And what I would say is still like even the stock market is incorrectly, I think, betting on like Shopify and how big it's going to have. And that stock has risen so much to the point where the future PE is absolutely ridiculous. But what I guess the story I'm trying to say is like e-commerce is not as a given to a lot of people, and there's a couple reasons why. One of them being most retail locations, their business model and their entire distribution is based on making as much margins as possible and getting foot store traffic into those locations. E-commerce has a very different distribution strategy and very different margins and require very different partners. So what ended up happening, especially for a lot of the retail brands that I work with, they actually made less money selling something on e-com than they sold in store, even though they had all that overhead, including real estate and the whole nine. So yeah, I think e-com is slowly adopting. This growth has happened, but I think because we live in California, we think it's actually bigger than it is. If you look in the Midwest, nothing has changed. So I would temper people's expectations on what they think. However, I would say that this is potentially going to keep growing. It's just like this short blip. There's going to be a lot of people who tried and like exit out and not be able to innovate or go, and they're going to lose a lot of money trying and things that don't work, and they don't think e-com. So it's going to flatten again. It's going to go down progressive. There hasn't been enough innovation to warrant like an e-com switch.
But over the last 10 years, we're seeing a big difference. That was kind of the part.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like from that standpoint, what you would say is the internet speeds have changed dramatically since then, the rise of the phone and mobile. So I would say that the behavior is e-com, but the mobile behavior has impacted how we traditionally think about purchasing. And I think that's more accurate than like e-com specifically.
Yeah. I think you're right, and I think there's a few pieces to depending on which perspective you want to ask that question, right? So I totally agree with you. I think a lot of these is just kind of a little bit more transparent to most people. They just kind of do the experience, not really thinking about, you know, at the level that you're thinking about, and definitely not at the level that I'm thinking about as well, right? So so great. Why I think it's interesting to talk a little bit more about. Well, before we get to that, because I do want to talk a little bit more business about social media. So how we heard about kind of your movement, from area to area. Tell us more about that. I know that you had some earlier adoption to entrepreneurial, endeavors. Can you kind of give people a little bit of history on context on that?
Yeah, so when I was in college, there was this thing called Twitter that was just emerging. And one of the things that I started to challenge was that I was a student journalist at the time. And I asked them simply this: right now at the top of the pyramid is the editor-in-chief, and at the bottom is the consumers. We're having a very few people decide what the consumer should read. I think Twitter inverted the pyramid, and I challenged the entire newspaper team that should we have the masses tell us what to write versus the other way around. I got laughed out of the room because nobody believed that, like, no one's going to take you seriously as a journalist if you use tweets as a source. Now this seems like such that's a statement that didn't age well, because literally every single publication is doing that. And if you still challenge that, think about every single coverage that Donald Trump still has. It involves all of his tweets, and that's a central source for so many things. So the conversations that were happening, I knew there was something there. So I created a newspaper instead of that, and I challenged the on-campus newspaper that has always been there. So the Intrepid was born, and I was creating not only daily news stories that's going on website when the on-campus paper was doing it weekly, but I was also creating video content and things that people weren't doing, and I was doing it all by myself. And because of all that effort, the staff grew from me to 4 people to 30 people, because everybody wanted to join it. Everybody saw it was something. That's when I knew I created something, because this exact business model is exactly what Huffington Post was doing. So I got to develop that in college, but I made a choice. Do I want to keep going on this entrepreneurial journalism side, or do I want to learn more about the social media and the marketing side of it? Obviously, I chose the latter, and that's kind of how I got my start. Because once you created something that was born from social media and made a business out of it, understanding how to use social media to unlock other people's business was a natural progression. And that's something that has that experience specifically is probably the reason why I look at it as such a macro picture, because the reason why I got into social media was looking at the trend, and I wanted to be the early adopter, and I knew when something was going out of style before everybody else did.
Yeah, that's super awesome and super. I'm so fascinated by that, because we only takes like one realization like that to kind of get us a big leap over. There was this book that I read. I'm trying to remember the name of it. It's a really short book. You can literally read it in like 20 minutes, and it basically talks about. I'll have to get the name and I'll have to post it on here so that people can see it. But the story is that, hey, have you ever seen a fly trying to uh, fly out the window, but keeps hitting the window over and over? It'll fly away, come back and try to hit it again over and over and over, not realizing that there's an opening just 2 feet over.
Yeah.
So I think that's most people's experience, unfortunately. And what we're trying to do with, I know for me, we're trying to do these shows and things like that to give people some inspiration and enlightenment, to be able to see a bit different perspective, to open a conversation, to open up their minds on stuff, and not be that fly that keeps hitting that window over and over. Because I hope that we're not flies and we can like, hey, I've done this, 3 times, 5 times, 10 times, whatever it is. Hey, let's try another way.
Yeah.
So
And, the one thing that I would add is that I'm now saying it after the fact, almost as if it was a very big given. But what I was saying was actually controversial. It wasn't really proven by facts or case studies or massive e-commerce to say like this was the right play, right? So I think the humbling thing that we need to all ask ourselves is, even though I'm making bold stances like that, this was a very hard choice for the newspaper and the students that were in there, right? They won awards. I joined the award-winning staff. It's not like I just came out of nowhere. They were doing anything, and like I said, like we need to do something else. So a lot of the things that I got to be careful too, because as a somebody in my position, I can't talk as if I'm the oracle, right? I'm making very calculated guess, but I could be wrong too. But I also know how hard it is what I'm asking for. I'm asking for you to change the philosophical behavior, or literally your belief system, or things that even built your business for the last 30 years, and saying you might want to do it differently because you might go bankrupt in the next 5 if you do. That's a hard conversations. And if you, as somebody who is willing to say these type big things, don't have the humility to realize you have human emotions in play, then I don't think you should voice those opinions, because you don't have the right to, because this is a lot of people's livelihoods, and this is challenging a lot of people's norms. This is hard. It's a hard conversation.
yeah, absolutely. So I would say, like, you're like one of the very few people that I hear talk about it in this way, other than Gary Vaynerchuk, which I've seen live in person, and he talks about his lead similarly, putting a bet on Instagram, you know. And that is obviously, we all know now is a huge
Well,
thing.
I mean, if you want to go further back, Gary, I know Gary very well. He gave me a case study to promote his jab, 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 right hook. Like he and I go back ways, but he first bet on YouTube before nobody else did, if you think about it, right? So his story was he created Wine Library TV when literally, and he created 1,000 episodes and nobody was watching when he first started. Nobody. It was from a freaking handheld camera that I actually used at the Intrepid as a mic, but that's a whole separate story. But he created that, posted every day, and started doing this when nobody was there. And then he built an entire wine business that came from it, right? And then he actually realized then it's like, he found out about angel investing a few years after, because he's like, oh, well, I'm doing something that I know is going to take next and I'm creating content. But you mean I could actually buy these companies ahead of time and like that will grow? So he bought Twitter, right? He bought Tumblr, he bought Venmo. He was an investor in it, right? But he's always taken that bet. And then I think what he did with his venture company, and sorry, my dog is drinking water, so I'm not sure if that sound is coming through the mic, but but yeah, I mean, then he bet on Snapchat as well. Like if you've seen Gary and his behaviors, like he basically says one thing, right? It's about attention. It's not about if it's social, Facebook's in, Instagram is in, Twitter is in. It's about attention, and he is just simply modifying his behavior. He still says one of the most underused things that he done as a marketer was not bid enough and use Google Ads enough when wine was 10 cents a click. And I totally agree with him, but he was already on there too. But it's again, like everything's easy in hindsight, but Gary has making bold statements and he's done big pivots, but because he's focusing on something, looking at the future, looking at now, day trading on attention, like those are his tenements. So yeah.
Yeah, awesome, absolutely. Um, the What's interesting is, well, I'm trying to relate with your experience, on Twitter, the story you told about building basically a newspaper out of social media, which was more dominant Twitter, I guess, in the time frame that we were talking about. And I remember that, hey, journalism was trusted. You got your mainstream journalism that was trusted. Even though people were knew a little bit about things that were a little bit funky and not straightforward, but they were able to tolerate it. They would still be able to trust it enough to not have any issues with what they were reporting. And then, of course, over time, little by little, things get leaked out, whatever it is about the war, whether it's about the 9/11, whatever it is, with the elections of different election years and things like that. And people started slowly, lose trust, and that stuff gets eroded. And so we've come to a point where we have technology to pass information without them, literally. And so I think that foresight of like, hey, this is important, it's going to become, something much bigger than you actually see here presently. And so, of course, now we're in the forefront, and it just continues to evolve as well. It's not standing still and like, hey, here's the platform and that's it. So many social issues, even especially recently, political issues now are like so active, on all those platforms, and everybody's just struggling, trying to, figure out what is what how should it be, uh, how should it be moderated? How should it be? Should free speech just be all wide open? But then there's a cost, the human cost. There's all kinds of different costs, ramification for that, because we definitely couldn't before social media. We definitely couldn't go into a movie theater and yell fire and stuff like that, and like go in the back and haha, stuff like that. So that's kind of like the what we're experiencing in some cases. The downsides, of such an open platform, right?
Well, so I want to go back to kind of what you said earlier, which is kind of like, how we can relate it to kind of what your business is and doing stuff like that, right? I think one of the things that real estate agents like yourselves do is you're basically forecasting a value of something that a huge investment is coming on and what the area is, right? So that in itself and that trusted figure, what social media has done, and I always use this example, social media is the gasoline, not the match. So social media will take something that already has a fire and make it go crazy, versus social media is just gasoline. If you don't have a fire, then you literally can't even start that fire, right? It's not going to go anywhere. It's just gasoline. It's just soaking into stuff. So social media is not going to get the awareness. It's going to help you elevate the platform and the things that you are doing. The other part to it, that I find super interesting, is that real estate to me is, you guys are all thought leaders by default, because somebody is coming to you and asking you to make some big decisions with big dollars, right? The conversations and trust that people have inherently is higher. Nobody goes to a real estate agent because they distrust them, or like, I don't know about this guy. Your market is too big for you to work with someone that you basically don't want to work with. The social media aspect of it isn't interesting because it's transparency into who you are as a person, right? You get to see their personality. You get to see how they work, how they evaluate. So it's interesting that that's the gasoline that's put on. If you're good, and if you know how to sell houses, if you know how to price out neighborhoods well, if you understand where the new things are going in your market, it's easily shown on social media, and that's why those people are absolutely very successful. So yeah. And the other part too, when you talked about trust, I would say that people distrust the news all the time. However, social media made it very easier. Again, it's that match versus gasoline example that I use all the time, right? Social media was just gasoline on that. But before, people didn't have places to comment. Forums, well, only like 7 people knew the links to that, and it was the same people doing it, and now that's a group chat, right? So it's just the evolution of things, but I think the distrust in news has always been there.
Yeah, it's like and not to use too many analogies here, but it's like there was already a crack there, and you stepped on it and it split. So
Yeah, exactly.
same kind of thing. And we all like felt that we all saw the crack, but like the crack wasn't big enough to like do anything. And then what's the alternative? And now we have the alternative, and that crack just like split up. And so and to be honest with you, there's also a lot of uh, that those news outlets have been around for a long time, and they just were not moving. They were not innovating, and they were not doing all the right things. They had it good for a long time, and they did their shady things in the back. They just continued doing it. They did not own up to their things. And so now we have to be, I think that's one of the hardest things to do in public now, is to earn the trust, to earn the trust, even if it's just one person, even if it's 50 people or whatever it is. You have to still earn that every single time. So I'm in a very pretty intensive mastermind, and one of the things we talk about is how to, credibility is one thing, but then there's building up the community, and then there is the the generosity that comes with that part, because with generosity comes trust. And then the last piece uh, is the consistency, which is why you don't hear people talk about why should I come on video every day? How about I just come on once and I blow it out of the water, and then like don't see me for a month, or randomly see me 3 weeks from now? Because people don't trust you. They're not going to trust you. They're not going to pay attention to you. They're not going to pay attention to you because you're not consistent. Why should you don't show up? Like, you show up once, you show up twice, you show up whenever. We don't know who you are, right? I don't know if you are going to show up. I say, hey, we're going to meet here. I don't know if you're going to show up. So that's why I think it doesn't get talked about enough. Like, hey, show up consistently, do what you say you're going to do, and guess what? When you're trusted, then you can service them. You can do all the right things that they need, that they'll allow you to do it, because otherwise you can't. Real estate is one of the rare professions and industry as an agent, a broker, that, like you said, the stakes are high, right? And everybody needs to live somewhere. Even if they're renting, they still need an agent to some degree, even though they're trying to bypass it. A lot of people, unfortunately, renters, landlords who are doing things themselves, are getting screwed because they don't know the law, they don't know how to manage it and all that kind of stuff. So even on the renting side, we're not just talking about selling and buying side, but the renting side is very, very underserved. Nobody goes to classes for these things. Nobody teaches you, and your parents definitely didn't teach you, stuff about this. And so there's a huge need But unfortunately for our industry, there's a low barrier of entry, right?
Mm.
So the low barrier of entry causes so many agents to come on and take the test, become an agent, but then has no idea what to do really, you know? So
Same in my industry. I mean, you just need a computer. That's
yeah,
it.
yeah,
Like if you want to do digital advertising, there's nobody stopping you. So, I think when it's not just your industry, if there is a big payoff for something, right, then more people are likely to come in. And, having at a higher level of entry doesn't necessarily going to stop those people, especially when the payoff is big. So, yeah, I think we're just in an industry where people just want to be in. So hence there's more demand.
yeah, absolutely. And the other thing is that we're the one of the rarer um, uh, professions where we are actually writing legal contracts without being lawyers. We're writing contracts, we're offering, going into contracts on buying a home. They're bound to those contracts. We're doing lawyer work, but we're not actually lawyers. And so we tell people like, hey, we're not lawyers, so if you sign this contract, this is what it is. But then we try to explain the best we can, but we're not lawyers. So you should, everybody should, seek legal counsel if they got some special circumstances that's not normal. These are all templates and stuff like that that we use over and over that works, that are continually um, refined to be able to protect both parties.
Right.
So I think people need to know that about real estate. So anyway, I don't want to get too far off track. I think this social media thing is super interesting, and so I want you to talk about, like, from your expertise as a real estate agent or as a real estate broker or brokerage, give some guidance of what people should be thinking about how to build their brand. It's all people talk about now, but
Hmm.
it's really difficult for them to start somewhere and have a clear vision what to do, because there's too many fragmented, terrible advice,
Hmm.
to be honest. So what can you tell those people?
Yeah, so let me share with you some macro trends that I'm seeing. So during March, Coldwell Banker, so one of the biggest real estate, right? They had a huge TV buy for the March Madness tournament, right? And once the pandemic hit and they knew the tournament was canceled, they shifted all their advertising dollars into Facebook and Instagram and YouTube. So that is a huge chunk of money that they are now putting it into social media, right? We are now going to see a big trend of people in the real estate and the big companies spending there. So what that means is you are now even entering even more crowded space, right? So you got to think about your brand and how you stand out from that. That's, I think, first and foremost. The other thing is your industry is also interesting. I think 3 sites are pretty much 50% of all searches for real estate. I think Zillow, Realtor, and Trulia, I think, make up the entire. I think Zillow, if I remember correctly, 30%, I think, is about that by itself, right? So we're already seeing a dominated pattern of users that are having specific impact and behaviors, right? If you're now also going to see advertising, you got to realize that you need to, as a realtor, evaluate how you're reaching out to people. Is your direct mail going to be good enough? Maybe evaluate that. Is what are you doing from a personalized perspective? What is the what do you think you should be posting on social media? What are you doing that's different than the websites or different blog posts and things like that, right? When I would say is if you're going into a space where now advertising is getting bigger and also more competition is going, you really have to make a stance on what type of realtor you are. So for example, I'll give some practical advice. Are you in Orange County as a realtor, and how do you brand yourself? Do you want to go Orange County, or do you want to go Lake Forest, Irvine? Do you want to be special to that community, right? Is that going to be better? Or does it make sense to go, you know what, I'm going to look at Fullerton or different markets, or I want to brand myself in a different way. I want to be a realtor that specializes in houses that are at this price range or whatnot. You have to think about where you fit into that, and you have to triple, quadruple down on that, is my advice. I think the hard part, or not the hard part, excuse me, the lazy part that people want to do, especially in social media, is that, oh, social media, I just got to post things and look at this person. This person went viral and has all these things. Like he can do whatever, or she can do whatever he wants. That's not how it goes. If you want to build something, think about exactly what niche you want to go. And even being nicher and so specific is the best way to go. So yeah. And the other thing, I just looked this up today. I'm looking at my notes. So from March 1st to March 7th, the beginning of March, right? To the end of March, the March 25th to 31st, real estate spent as an entire industry in the United States, 49% less from March 1 to March 7 to March 25 to 31, right? So what is happening is everybody's looking at a huge macro picture. It's scary knowing that disposable income and where people aren't there. I don't think you need to be focusing on that. I think you need to realize what kind of brand you want to do in social media, because now more than ever, people are going to pay attention, right? So focus on the branding, focus on your niche, and really blow that out of the water and have a proper strategy for it.
That's a super great advice. There's a few pieces in there that I really love, and you know, toward the end there, the image I had was like, hey, you got a big stadium, and and everybody rushes in, right? So let's say the big stadium is social media, right? And initially it was a little bit not crowded, but you had some space and you had people in there and stuff like that. But now, because of even through the pandemic, as well as you cite some of the data from that time, now everybody rushes into the stadium. What's going to happen now? If you need to find your friend, is it easier to find your friend before the pandemic or after, right? And so when you stand out, when you have a niche, right, that people can identify you as, then now I can find you. It's almost like if you're in that stadium and you're the only person that wore a red shirt. Guess what? We're going to see you, we're going to find you, right?
Yeah.
And it's much easier to do that. And so I think that's your point. That if I understand it correctly, that's the point.
Yeah. And then I think the other part is that one sale in a real estate, the amount of money that you get is a lot bigger than like an ecom brand or a restaurant that would sell one dish, right? So if you really think about that, if you focus on the customers, and let's say your entire total addressable market is 100 people, well, if you get 10% of those people, that profit is going to be so much bigger than somebody who is trying to sell 1 million sandwiches to break even or something like that, right? So I'm using hyperbole numbers, but to try to get people to understand that, right? I think people have a dream, and rightfully so, of the grandeur of things, but sometimes you have to first practice and own the space before you know how to scale. Scaling something and being universal is a very hard thing, and I think fine-tuning your brand and messaging, how to sell that and make that into a process and then be able to scale that out, that's the dream. But you can't scale out anything if you don't know how to do something, especially in your niche, properly first.
Yeah, I think that's totally right. And I unfortunately, I think I see too many agents in our industry really just want to make a living. Well, first they go through these stages, right? I'm going to be a real estate agent. It's going to make a lot of money. I can see beautiful houses. I can work with clients. I can manage my own time.
I get to buy an expensive car so I can write it off because I'm a real estate agent, the whole nine, right?
Right. So that's the first stage, right? And they get into it and they see how hard it is to actually gain, clients to actually close with you. Everybody will talk to you, but are they going to close with you? Because again, it's so crowded in the industry. So many agents. We have 24,000, in Orange County agent. And so everybody has a sister, brother, grandma, whatever, who's an agent, right? And so they get into this second phase where it's like, hey, this is where everybody fails, right? Or jump out. Like, it's too hard, can't make any money. I need to pay my bills. I have consistent income. I have consistent, paycheck, and it's not happening. I don't know what else to do. Everything costs money. Ads cost money. Postcards and mailers cost money. My brokerage costs money. Association costs money. I got all this costs. And if I don't make some sales, I can't even pay those costs. So they start to have this realization that if they can't consistently have, fans and database and clients to be able to turn that over, they're out. And especially when the pandemic hit, a lot of people like, well, I don't know what to do. I was doing mailers, I was doing open houses, I was doing, door knocking for business and stuff. I can't do any of that now. So I can't do anything. I'll stop, right? you know, and
Yeah, so there's so many things that you're absolutely right that I absolutely hate about people who think about it that way, because what they were talking about is they were doing more, right? They were going this way when they need to be going this way. And what I mean by that is you are just trying as many tactics as possible because people told you what it was. In fact, you were just doing bad job of one of everything versus doing one thing really good, and that's what happens, right? And people get so impatient with the process, just especially the impatience of people in every industry is something that just completely like breaks my heart, because it makes you do things out of your character just to try to get a quick win instead of having that steadfast belief and understanding of what you're doing and believing in it, right? So you know I that story breaks my heart because I know it's so like that. What they should have done is take that one client and treated them as if it was the only client that they'll have, give them all the information possible, go to more open houses, check with them, text with them, provide more information, right? Like go understand what's going on with their kids and all that kind of stuff. Give them projections of what this market, like there's so many things just by himself, by being attentive and answering all those questions versus he's already looking at scale. Oh, I got to do mailers. I got to get a headshot. I got to get a website. I got to put it in. That is not the right way to think, right? That's not going to help you get a database. So, like that's, if the people that are out there thinking about that, I highly recommend that. And that's why I'm not giving you tactics that I would think I know is going to open houses, right? I would much rather tell people that it's the wrong way to think so that they don't try 17 other things, because if I tell them to do 2 more things, that's going to be 30 things that they're doing versus doing one thing that's really good.
right. So we always say like, hey, you got, we write down like how many things, maybe let's just say 17, and say, okay, what are the top 2? Let's work on those top 2, and then forget about those. You master these top 2, maybe you can add a third, and then we can grow from there. If you're trying to, build, build this, Great Wall of China all in like one day or something like that, right? And it is pile of rocks, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no, we totally agree, and yeah, it's heartbreaking, and at the same time, that's the market, right? And that's building a business. It's any business, you have to hustle, you have to think outside the box, you got to try to be better than somebody else, and you got to focus,
Yeah.
right? I think too many times, I see agents like in the same seminar I am, in the same, group that I am, all trying to learn and stuff like that. But then when you go away from there, like, hey, you're telling me it doesn't work. Did you do it? Did you do this? Did you do that? Like it's all, we're all in the same class, right? And it's like, well, it didn't do it, then how is it going to work? Right? So I'm a big believer of like, hey, learn something, do something, learn something, do something, learn something, do something, and then keep doing. And if it works, double down on it and work toward that, and if you don't know, then you got to try it, right? But you don't try blindly, like you're saying, you know, you're trying, you can't try to do all these 17 things like you're saying, but you got to take action and think about what you want to do, right?
Well, so I think it's a slight turn on that. What I'm saying is, like a lot of people try to take the shortcut of like, oh, I need to do ads and that's going to get me more leads, or I'm going to hire a virtual assistant and they're going to get me more phone calls. And people are trying to like triple, quadruple, 5x by just paying money or doing something lazy, right? What I'm asking is doing exactly what needs to be done and you're just too lazy to do it, or like don't want to do it, right? A lot of people get into entrepreneurship or open a business to make money, and 99% of those people fail and fail hard because you're not doing it because you're trying to change something or be something different. You're just trying to make money, and those people are so easily sniffed out. Like you said, when you go to those classes or meetings or conferences, you can easily find out who is just disingenuous and people who are the hard workers, right? I clients see that too. We're all human. So what I would say is don't focus so much on like, oh, I got to do this, I got to try this, and if it works, it doesn't. You already know what works. You already know what works. You just don't want to do it. That I guarantee it. Every single real estate agent that I would talk to and give advice, I guarantee you I don't even need to be there. You just need me to be there to tell you you're an idiot because you want to do 17 other things when you know you have to do these 5 and you just don't want to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always surprised. I showed some rentals. It was my rental listing, and these these people came in. Basically, it's the mother and the two daughters. They came all the way from the Bay Area, and they came to see this place, and I scheduled it for them. I put them in Calendly. They got follow-ups. They got reminders. They got everything. Make sure they sign the COVID form. Like all that is automated online and all that stuff. We sit there and meet with them, show them the place. No sales, nothing. It was just like, hey, this is how this place is. This is what I like about this place. This is the highlights. This is the area. They're from the Bay Area. They have no idea, And I said, well, so how have you guys been finding rentals? They go, well, we've just been looking on Zillow and stuff like that. I'm just so surprised. Like, I reach out and try to, see these places and nobody gets back to me. And like, you're like one of like two out of like 15, and say, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, hey, what I do for my clients and mind you guys, hey, this is not like a $20,000 commission sale I'm making here. Okay, this is a $500 rental commission I'd be getting writing the same contract, doing the same amount of work for these renters. And I said, hey, I'm happy to do it for you. It's no problem. I'll set you up on searches. You see something you like, we'll communicate online. It's easy. You can just favorite the ones you like. I'll set up the showing. Next time you come down from the Bay Area, just show up. I'll line up all whatever it is, 4, 5 properties, and we'll just go back to back. Say we'll do it in 2 hours. We'll get it done, and you decide if 1 or 2 you really like and want to pursue one. We'll go get it for you. So you literally can show up and see the homes, and then decide on one, and then we'll go get it, sign the contract, and you're in. Right? Let's take all that stuff out, and I'm putting all my efforts and services out to these guys to show them. And guess what? She flies back to the Bay Area, or I'm sorry, she drove. She didn't even fly. She drove the kids down here, like 7, 8 hours, whatever it is. And so, long story short, okay, we're in escrow, okay, and we close next week.
Congrats.
They're going to be down here living in Irvine, okay, for the first time, okay. And I found out later on that I started talking to them. They asked me like, hey, so what's your background? How long you been an agent? Why did you become an agent? So I gave them a little bit of story. I also told them a little bit more about Irvine, what they got to look forward to as far as education, as far as lifestyle, as far as the parks and all the amenities that Irvine has. And so the husband said, you know what? Yeah, I don't know what happened, but when my wife came home that day after looking at your rental, said, hey, we got our agent, he's going to take care of it. We're going to find a place. Because the next day after I met her, she called me back and said, hey, we don't want to rent anymore. We want to buy. Okay. That's why we're in escrow today. Okay. Because they had confidence. They had confidence that, hey, I'm going to serve them. I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to make sure that one way or the other, we're going to find a home that's right for them, however long it takes. Right. And so it's that trust and confidence. Now, I didn't have to do this whole sales song and dance and, dog and pony show or nothing. I just said, hey, what do you need? Here's what I can do for you. And here's what I can show you. And because I know the area, we can do this very efficiently. And so, here we are today. So that goes back a little bit to what I was talking about earlier. Like, hey, put your foot forward and give people the trust that you're going to follow through. And every step of the way, even up to today, I was just on the phone with her. Say, hey, appraisal's coming. Here's what to expect about appraisals. If it comes in low, don't worry, you're totally fine. If it comes in high, great, but your home value is going to be your home value. Doesn't matter what appraisal guy says to you. And so she's like, cool, thank you. I said, hey, I promised you that every step of the way, before things are going to happen, you're going to know what the next step is coming up. You're going to know like what to watch out for and what the ramifications might be for you. You can make decisions ahead of time, and then we can have that taken care of. So that's just one example, so like service people, like do the work,
Yeah. And I think I had a mentor who gave me a great saying, and I absolutely use it to this day. You have to relentlessly pursue your client's goals and never rest in the glory. What that means is if a client does well and you have the best intentions for their goals, then they're going to take care of you. It's just a matter of fact. But you can never rest and say like, okay, I did enough. Like you have to keep doing that. You can always have to relentlessly pursue no matter what, right? In your case, what you're basically saying is, because you put them first and showed your expertise of the Irvine area, they're like, wait a minute, like this guy is someone I can trust. We're going to go buy, and it's a bigger house. So someone who thought it was a $500 thing, it's like listing on Zillow Shore, you come or you're not, like, I don't care. They would have lost out on that, right? And what we are talking about here is nothing new. We haven't talked about social or digital media strategy or branding, nothing. It's just what you know as a realtor you need to get done. So that's why I like that example, and congrats on the escrow, because that's exactly how it should be done.
Yeah, and I'm super happy, because I can talk to 10 people, and maybe only 3 that actually get it, that hey, I'm out here for you guys, because it takes both sides, right? And they were able to recognize that. And the biggest thing is having the confidence. There's so many people who are renting who desperately want to be homeowners, but they have no guidance and they have no confidence in how they're actually going to accomplish that. They might even make enough money for it, they don't even know it. And so I feel like there's a need. And so whenever I get a chance, I just give, and say, hey, these are the options. I'm not pushing you. I just want you to know what these are. And if you have more questions about them, it's better that you're clear about it and decide not to, than not knowing anything at all.
Yep.
Right. So perfect. Yeah. So to kind of round us off a little bit with social media, obviously we've established like, hey, this is the medium that you got to be in. This is the new future. We're kind of, I think as Gary says, it's like the beginning, of something, super great, going forward. It's just, we're still figuring, stuff out. But for right now, we can kind of see a little bit of what it could be. And, the old traditional ways of reaching people, getting attention, getting your message out, and being super focused about what it is that you do, okay, needs to be honed in for today's technologies, right?
Yeah, I mean, overall as a macro, I agree with what you're basically saying, what Gary's saying, which is like social media is the platform right now that grabs the most people's attention, and that's why he's invested in it. So he's saying that in tomorrow, if Facebook dies, he's okay with it because he's gonna go find the next one, right? And be active in it and know exactly what to do because he's a practitioner and a listener. I would say that from a real estate perspective, and even people that are always wanting to go on ecom, right? A lot of people I even have friends who are like, okay, I need to be doing social media, right? You obviously made a career. I'm like, no. It's like, what do you mean, no? Like, you made a career out of it. I think you know how to accelerate. I'm like, yeah, but you're not doing the 17 other things that need to be done currently. So, what I would say is a lot of real estate agents, are you following up with your clients with handwritten notes of saying, like, hey, appreciate it. Here's the other follow up information I'm looking for? Do you have their birthdays and their children's birthdays or big moments? And are you sending them information? Be like, hey, I know this is Timmy's big thing. I just want to say congrats. Are you doing those like personal things that are in client services, right? If you're not, then I do not want you to think about a single effing post that you're going to put on social media or a strategy. How are you doing your listings? Do you have the background information of the neighborhood? Do you have the forecast of what this area is going to be valued? What other things are planning to be built? What other malls are happening? Where is there new plans for a freeway or infrastructure? Do you know all that information? Do you have that? Is it available? Do you have it printed? If not, think about doing that before you make a single freaking post, right? So what I'm saying overall is that I don't want people to hire me ever, because if you need to hire me, then you almost don't need me, because I can probably refer you to 17 other people that could do it too. But if you come to me and want the social media hack, your thinking is wrong. You need to be doing the base minimums first and doing that at your fullest extent, right? If you're at the scalable part, yeah, I can have a different conversation with you. But the things that I'm asking, you're going to have easy answers to. What is your margins? What is your sell rate? How many listings do you get? Well, how much do you convert? All those, if you don't know those things, then let's not have that conversation. So, as much as I would love to give some practical advice of what I know works in the social media space in real estate specifically, I would rather challenge you and say, are you doing everything at exactly what I said? If you did 90% of what I said, let's have a conversation. But I guarantee you, you've probably done less than 50% of those to the majority of the people that I'm talking to, because you're not practicing what you're preaching. If you're a real estate agent that cares about customer service, well, prove it. Do you have all that information? Are you doing that? Are you texting them? Do you know, like what they like? Have you scoured your client's social media and seen what kind of brands that they like? If you've seen them with a Pinot that you can buy, did you send them a case of that because you saw them on social media and be like, thank you for showing, here's you stuck with me for 3 hours seeing this, I would love to give this to you as a token of appreciation. Are you doing those things, right? If you're not, then what's a social media post going to do for you?
Yeah, I love the analogy of like the traditional brick and mortar store. Okay, so like social media is like the for sale signs and stuff like that on the windows, right? Yeah, you people get through the door. But then what you're talking about is like, hey, why are you talking to me about products and stuff like that? You didn't even put in the time and work to know where you want to either buy a brick and mortar store to put your products in, right? How you're going to service that. Then don't talk to me. Like I don't know what I can do for you. You're gonna buy products. You put the cart before the horse before you get that stuff. That's kind of part of like what I'm hearing. So
there is no shortcut. This is what I would say. Even though it looks like I'm doing a shortcut because I'm doing so many things on social media and have built a lot of businesses, all I did was put the gasoline on the fire. I didn't create a shortcut, right? There was things that I had to even change infrastructurally before I could pour the gasoline. But a lot of people come to me or think about social media as a shortcut, and that is absolutely the worst way to think about it. If it's not strategically doing for your business, then don't think about it, because I guarantee you're not doing the baseline things. You're just looking for a shortcut. And if you have that mindset, that's a losing mindset, and you need to change that.
yeah, I think about it in the same way that traditional marketing real estate has been. People like, hey, you got to farm. So what's involved in farming? You're gonna send, cards. You're gonna knock on the doors. You're gonna get to know the people. That's at least a 18 months investment. And so same thing with social media. Like it's just a different medium. So I look at it like an investment over time. Continue to add and improve. Continue to find your audience. Continue to serve those audience over and over and over and over. You wake up one day, whatever it is, 18 months, 36 months, that we have a runway to stay on top of. And one of the first things I did regarding marketing is that, hey, you know what? Traditional is great. It has worked for many years, but I think the future, just like you're looking to the future. Like I think the future is here. I think the future is where people are going to be looking for agents and homes and getting advice is through their phone, on their computer. If they're on Zillow, they'll eventually find me in the area, whatever it is. That's where I see the runway is. I'm not sure how many people are reading actual newspapers anymore. I'm not sure how many people are actually reading, magazine. Maybe internationally there's some circulation, but the traditional postcards and stuff like that stuff costs a lot of money, man. Like 50 cents on a card, each for you sending like 500, 1,000 at a time. It adds up pretty quick too. I'd rather, like you said earlier, spend the money on the ads and collect, my viewers and people who are actually clicking and interested in it, and try to keep them, in my audience.
So, before this call, I even kind of took the research, because I know if I give this advice, no one's still going to do it because most people are lazy and not going to put in the time. But if you look up, I looked up Laguna Hills area, and I looked up Lake Forest area, Irvine area on YouTube, right? And see what came up in the searches. There's not a single real estate agent within the first page talking about what the area is and why it's good to own a place there, or what the neighborhood is like. So you're telling me that you're not even going to do something that you already have a knowledge of, that you can literally put on a tripod with your cell phone, nothing highly producing, like, this is why this area is great, this is growing up. Like, you don't even have something in the biggest search engine possible to be able to even put that, and now you're asking me about social media posts, right? So I want people to stop thinking about shortcuts, right? You know what needs to be done. If you want to be, and I go back to the first thing, if you want to be specific in a niche, right? The fact that, let's say you want to be a real estate, the best real estate agent in Irvine, because man, that is huge money, right? Let's just think Irvine's a big one, but let's even pick even if it's a smaller niche, right? Think about that mindset. You know what you need to do. You need to create an entire video series of every single interesting places in Irvine, what you're forecasting from a trend, where the best school districts are. Like, those are things that you can create a video. Nobody's created it. How many real estate agents are in Irvine and doing that? So here's the thing. It's like, as much as these advice that I'm giving you, I know no one's going to play on it because people are still in the mindset of trying to take a shortcut. So I think this is why, yeah, like people have to just do what they know needs to be done without trying to take a shortcut.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a perfect example because you're not an agent, but you're potentially like a consumer. You're looking at it more from a consumer perspective. Like, hey, if I was a consumer and I want to buy a home and I'm moving to Irvine, Irvine is what I'm interested in. These are the things that I want to know. I want to know about the schools. I want to know about the community. I want to know about the restaurants, what the lifestyle is going to be like, right? That's the first thing I do. And if I see you giving that stuff, maybe I'm going to ask you more because, hey, you know what? This guy seems to know the area, and that's a conversation starter. It's almost like back onto the store brick and mortar example. Like somebody standing out there, like, hey, I know that you were looking for shoes, and have you looked at ours? Kind of, hey, this, these are the different kind of sport shoes we have, or different, what kind of sport do you use? So just getting in the mind of the consumer of what they're looking for in that experience and fulfilling that. Right? So when that happens, like you said, with the neighborhood information, then they're going to find you. So the post, it's gone in a day, like it's gone in 3 hours.
Or that YouTube video that you spend 3 hours filming and 17 hours editing and worried about it might only have 7 views. That's okay. It eventually will have 100 views, right? Eventually be seen by one person that said, you know what? I like this dude because he created this content. I'm going to trust him more. You can't put an ROI on that in that simple way. And you only do if you want to take a shortcut or you don't believe in the process. So yeah, I think those are things that people should be doing, but those are things you don't even need me to say. You already knew you need to do it. You're just too lazy to do it.
Awesome. I love this conversation with you. I want to be respectful of your time. I want to try to wrap this up a little bit. But one question I want to ask you about is TikTok. Give me your 2 to 3 cents.
Yeah, so TikTok has the most awful ad product of all time. So that's like first things what I would say. The growth of the platform and what it's doing is undeniable. It has people's attention. However, if you're trying to take a shortcut again and trying to become the biggest TikToker, trying to see how that can get you viral, I'm not going to talk to you about kind of like what the benefit is. But what happens with all these platforms and seeing how Facebook grew, how Twitter grew, how Snapchat grew, everything, right? There's a small subset of people that use it and it becomes mainstream and people get onto it. It's your job to figure out how you fit into that space. So, if you're a real estate agent, there should be so many things that are happening on there. It's like how you look for a house. Do this, do this, do this, do this. That's a 15-second clip that can go and put the hashtag real estate, hashtag Irvine. You already have a content out there, right? Those are things that you can be doing. Oh, what if I'm shy? What if I do this? That's just excuses. You just don't want to do it. You're afraid of it's going to get 7 views and that's going to hurt your pride. Like, I think all that is possible. But again, I guarantee you, don't even think about TikTok because I would assume that you're probably not even doing Instagram properly. And if you're probably not doing Instagram properly, you're probably not doing the basics of like client services properly. So, it's a cascading thing. But yeah, TikTok is growing. This ad product is absolute hot garbage, but it is improving. But yeah, I think there's a lot of potential for it. And real estate can absolutely take arbitrage in it. It's just, you got to want to do it versus I'm not going to try to force you to do it.
For sure. Let's talk a little bit techie on that on the TikTok. So you correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Because I don't pretend to be an expert at that at all, but it's just what I see. What I see is that TikTok is bringing a platform, where they have strategically gave features and stuff like that that may not be available on the other platforms. Gives people things to play with, especially younger crowds, younger kids can hop on it and do something, entertaining, and so it grew, but also the algorithm is much more laxed, right? And so it draws a lot more attention to a specific post when the number picks up on how many people watched it, how many people are following it, and stuff like that, because the algorithm is allowing more people to see it, not being as strict as like say Facebook. I don't even know what the number is. Like they let 25 people see it unless it takes off and they're seeing more engagement or more more clicks from it. So that gives them give TikTok's a jumping off platform to get a lot more people interested in the platform. But they're immature, like you said, on getting the ads, stuff going. Maybe they haven't figured it out what they're exactly going to do with it. But to be going on TikTok now, assuming they're, like you said, hey, if you're not gonna actually take action, to do stuff and stick with it, and to at least to a degree, to at least try it long enough, right? There's no point. However, what to know about TikTok versus Instagram? Is TikTok kind of a newer wave, a newer version of Instagram? Say it was like 3 to 5 years ago, when it was more organically grown, until Facebook kind of started to cut down on that stuff. So now organic growth on that is dramatically reduced. So am I kind of like, give me some ideas, like
Yeah, I get the premise of what you're saying. So Facebook's algorithm used to be called EdgeRank, and it was based basically on if you had better engagement, and it was it had three factors. One of them was time decay, the other one was engagement, but basically it rewarded you for being relevant and timely, right? What has since happened with the Facebook's algorithm is it already has so much understanding of user data that is provides you the right ads that advertisers are trying to force to you. And it's gotten really good at that. So it deprioritized some of the brands that are trying to give you organic, right? So it actually ends up being a better experience. TikTok's algorithm is similar to a YouTube algorithm in that they incentivize users for creating good content because they'll show it to so many exponentially more people, right? The ad product is slightly different because unlike YouTube, where if you have more views, you make more money and YouTube make more money, it's kind of like a win-win situation. TikTok is not like that. They haven't been able to monetize the users the way that YouTube has, but the algorithm itself is very similar in that it significantly rewards you for people who are trying to go viral, right? So I think what you're saying in there was that it seems like the algorithm favors users more. Yeah, to a degree. And what that is happening is if you create really fire content, it gets there. Now, how that algorithm works and how people are trying to hack it is what I think is the losing mindset, because what is happening is the algorithm always gets updated all the time. So by default, there is no algorithm. The thing that you're trying to hack right now is going to change in the near future. So there is no algorithm, if that makes sense, right? A little bit meta, but I think your listeners will get it. The key for understanding, evaluating TikTok is understanding that your audience or every single social platform has grown older, right? Facebook used to be exclusively for college students and now is for 50-year-old males and females and too, right? With all the other audiences. Instagram was basically for the photo people, and then it went for the younger crowd, and then it kind of grew as well, right? Snapchat was pretty much exclusively for teens, and then it now has grown maturely. All the platforms will age properly and grow no matter what. History has shown that, right? So there is sure a perception that, like, if you look at it from a marketing perspective, you say an audience is over indexing in one platform or another. So yes, TikTok over indexes for 13 to 17-year-olds and 18 to 24-year-olds, but that doesn't mean that it's exclusively only there. There are people that are old people that are old people. That sounds like a bad thing, and that's not what I'm trying to say. There are people that are not young in that early demo that is making absolutely huge returns on TikTok, right? So I'll give one practical advice, because I'd be very curious to see how many people do it, or you're taking an insult to what I'm saying about, like, F you, I'm not a loser. I don't have a losing mindset. I'm going to do what you do. So hopefully I challenge at least one listener. But what you could do on TikTok right now is literally go into Irvine, like, let's go to Spectrum and say, this is what the Spectrum is. These are my favorite stores. One, and you can hit all those frames and say, if you want to know more about this area, hit me up because I'm a real estate agent. Hashtag that real estate, hashtag that Irvine, and create those posts, right? Then go to another area, talk about the parks. This is my favorite parks. Bam, bam, bam. This is what I love to do on weekends. Do that over and over. Create 80 of those posts, right? It's not going to take you long. It doesn't need to be highly produced. You're going to start not only putting into the algorithm that you're a real estate agent, but you're also tagging an Irvine. People are going to be searching for it, and they may see it. They might contact you if you have your profile set up properly, if you're showing a lot of thought leadership, right? Do you want to do that effort? Sure. If I was in that space, would I recommend that? Yeah. And let's see if you can do it, because you know you can do it. And a lot of people just don't do it. So that's I think there is a huge opportunity. And when a platform grows, you have more opportunity to become it on that platform than anybody else. So that means you can take a risk, calculate a risk to dump and do everything you can possible to get there. However, don't think it's going to be a shortcut, right? You have to watch the trend.
Yeah, you'll get some points for being earlier adopter,
So
rather
much points.
yeah,
It's
rather than
like infinite. Like if you think about all the people that became famous on like Vine, right? They're famous on YouTube and Instagram, everything else right now because they started there, right? There's so much like people have to think about how everything progresses, right? Just because it's easier to get famous in one when there's only 100 people versus a million people, right? So you have to think about those type of things when you're investing your time in marketing.
yeah. So if you're the first in the stadium, you might be standing on the stage when everybody floods in, right?
Exactly, 100%.
Awesome. So super cool. I challenge everybody, to do that. Even if you don't know the platform, download it, do a couple of things. I think Tony has given, some really really easy executable, advice to do that. At the end of the day, right? Show up, cadence, and then practical, right? Practical content, right? Things that people are looking for. I think
Absolutely.
those are really the three keys. You stick to that. I think you'll be fine for a long time. But don't expect success right away. No shortcuts, right?
No
So
shortcuts.
awesome. All right. Thank you so much for being here for so long. But I want to get through a couple more things with you.
Yeah.
Tell everybody. This is. I want to give you, kind of a space here to kind of tell everybody what you got going on, what people should know about you, how do they reach you, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so as much as kind of like tough love-ish and a little bit dickish vibe that I potentially could have given off, it's the reason is I'm so passionate and that I believe that people don't need my help. And all I am doing is just echoing the voice that you have in your head that you knew you could do it. You're just waiting for somebody to help you get there. You don't need it. So what I would say is that right now, during the pandemic, I kind of realized I am doing very well in my career and I have all this time. Why am I not taking advantage of it and being able to create content again and be able to chat with people like you on a regular day basis to just do that? And because a lot of my friends who got laid off during that time, well, they can't even work if they wanted to, and yet I'm able to work in the exact profession that I want, and I'm not taking the advantage of the time that I'm not working. So because of that, I created a podcast, Welcome to Sheckyville, and you're feel free to download it on iTunes and Spotify and wherever it may be. But what I would say is if you truly want to connect with me and like connect with me and literally ask me for advice and what you need to be doing in your marketing, you can text me directly. So my number is 213-214-0970, 214-0970, and I will be literally texting people. In fact, I texted my group of people that are in the VIP group a couple messages in the last 2 days, talked to one about a marketing plan that they've been thinking about. But yeah, feel free to contact me. I will literally give you the advice. I just felt like to a degree to get the context, I wanted to give a little tough love because I feel like everybody here understands what they need to do. They just needed me to say like, okay, he told me to go do it, so I'll do it.
Yeah, awesome. So I did put that phone number in the post here. So if you guys missed that,
Love
just
it.
go to the post and you'll see the number there. And super gracious of you to kind of open up your doors and allowing people to be able to engage and see what it is that they need. And if you're hungry and you want to do the work and you want to follow and take action, then absolutely hit up Tony. So. Cool. All right. So as per tradition, we always ask our guests if they got a quote that they like to share with us. And so, Tony, take it away.
Yeah, be the change you want to see in the world by Gandhi. I've always believed that. When all is said and done, I want to have a legacy and impact people in a better way because I genuinely just want to help people. I genuinely want to have the tallest building in the land, but by no means I'm going to knock down other buildings to get there. I want to make all of us have tall buildings, right? So I'm in the mindset of if I can help people and be genuine and give way more than I take, that's the world I want to live in. So I'm gonna try to be the change I want to see in the world every day.
Amen, man. It's not a zero-sum game. This thing in business and entrepreneurs, and it's
I want
not.
to run a deficit for the rest of my life. I want to give way more. I don't even want to get close to zero. I want to give way more than I receive. Like I want to be so bankrupt to the point where I give away so much free advice. So that's my mindset and always has been. And I'm putting my money where the mouth is. Anybody that contacts me that needs help, I've never asked for a dime. So this is what I do.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you, Tony. I appreciate your time in coming on and really, really just being honest and straightforward. We need more. Definitely need more of that, all the time. And love to have you come back again sometime.
Yeah, let's do it.
This has been great. I probably talked to you for another 3 hours. We'll have to, shelf that for a little bit and catch up a little bit later. All right, that's it for us. Thank you all for joining. If you like the session with Tony, please, just comment and let us know, what you thought about it. If you had any questions as you're watching, feel free to comment as well. We're both tagged on this post, and we can always circle back and get to you. And definitely, like, if you got stuff going on and hey, you just need some advice on how you want to do your marketing and advertising, reach out to Tony. He's not going to charge you. We're just going to talk about like, hey, what it is that you need, and if it's something that he can service you on, and you guys can make an exchange, that'd be awesome. So anyway, that's it for me. Happy hump day, everybody. And I will be back tomorrow, 5 o'clock again. So tune in. And it's been super great. I will sign off for now. So bye, everybody.